Welcome on into the Utah Blockcast. I'm Steve Bartle, Utah Inside for KSL Sports. Good to be with you guys on a Friday, recording this one Thursday night. Looking forward to this weekend. And this episode is all about the matchup, Oklahoma State versus Utah. 4 p.m. tip-off for that one at the John M. Huntsman Center. Utah back in action after a quick little bye, and looking forward to seeing this group back in action. So recording this one Thursday night, previewing the matchup for Saturday. But before we get into that, and I have Andrew Crowley on the show with me to preview the Cowboys and Runnin Utes. So we had a good conversation about the game and then talked a little bit more about the Big 12 and sort of the picture that is taking shape here. And this is a really crucial stretch for Utah that could kind of determine the next couple of weeks and really kind of the trajectory that they're on to finish the season. So this is a big time opportunity for Saturday. And again, there's been a lot of talk about this game being a big one for the fans to show up to. And this is one that, this squad is going to need the fan base behind them. Oklahoma State has been solid this year, struggling in Big 12 play, but I think this is one that Utah can certainly figure out a way to win with the crowd behind them. So, and that could do a lot for Utah. And again, so talking with Andrew about the matchup, about the Big 12 picture. But before I get to that, we were up at the ribbon cutting ceremony for the Utah baseball program, cutting the ribbon on their new stadium, on their new home. And what a great moment for Utah baseball, for Utah athletics. Really a monumental opportunity and day for this program to finally have an on-campus facility, an on-campus stadium. Just a great opportunity for Utah to bring the baseball program home, essentially. And we were up there Wednesday afternoon for the ribbon cutting ceremony. And it was really, really cool to see the baseball team, how appreciative they were of everybody that contributed to this, how excited they were for the stadium, talking to a couple players, talking to, Mark Harlan and other Utah athletic representatives. Just a lot of excitement for what this is going to do for the baseball program. And so, if you have the opportunity to go up there and check it out, you're probably coming away pretty impressed. It is an impressive facility. So looking forward to adding some baseball coverage to my resume this spring, getting up there, a lot this year. So looking forward to that. But with all that, let's go ahead. Let's get to my conversation with Andrew Crowley as we preview Oklahoma State versus Utah. All right, Andrew, good to have you back on the podcast. We've been doing these a bit more regularly. And if you missed Sunday's or Monday's episode, we recorded Sunday night and posted that Monday. We did a little progress report, so you can go back, listen to that if you so choose to do. But on this episode, we're going to be previewing this weekend's matchup. Oklahoma State coming to Salt Lake City. Steve Lutz leading the Cowboys into the John M. Huntsman Center, and looking forward for the Runnin Utes to get back in action after a nice little bye week, to be back in the comfy confines of the Huntsman Center. I think a lot of people are looking forward to this game, just kind of given the slight upward tick we've seen this team be on the last couple of weeks, the improved play and all that sort of stuff. And so, Andrew, as we're recording Thursday night, so we've got a couple days before the game, but just temperature gauge, just how you feeling? How you doing? What are you feeling about the Utah men's basketball program right now?
I feel good that they had a bye, but man, when there's no midweek game, these weeks take a little bit longer to get
a lot longer.
We had 4 straight days this week of Big 12 hoops from Monday to Thursday, but no Utes. So hopefully they're well rested for Saturday. Unfortunately, their opponent also had, the same amount of time off, but I think the vibes are good. I think the vibes are pretty good. We've seen a couple of the clips from practice, and we know they're out there, grinding away, and the coaches are out there grinding away. And, I heard another coach, I think it was Mick Cronin, talk about how these are really the dog days of the season. I'm sure you remember Craig Smith talking about that a few years ago too. Like, these are kind of the tough days, but I feel like the vibes are good with Utah basketball.
Yeah, I agree. I think the bye week came at a good time. It's been a tough start to Big 12 play, but again, the team has improved. They've played better, at least offensively, and they've had moments, they've had flashes where they've shown progress on the defensive end of the floor as well. And I think the bye week comes at a good time to reset, right? Coming off the loss to BYU with the post-game message being what it was from Coach Jensen, that his team quit. Probably a good time to get away, at least a couple days, and then get back on the grind and reset for the rest of the season. But you mentioned, the Big 12 being in action this week, Monday through Thursday, and took some time, and we'll talk more about it. But the Big 12 picture right now is actually really interesting for Utah. So we'll talk more about that later on in the episode to finish things up. But again, Oklahoma State coming in. What do we make of the Cowboys? 14-6 on the year, 2-5 in Big 12 play. They actually started the season really strong. They look to be like one of the surprise teams. But what do you make of the Cowboys in year two under Coach Lutz?
Yeah, well, you mentioned it. They started off really strong. I think they were, 8, 9, 10-0, something like that. Their only non-conference losses to their rival Oklahoma, which I'm sure that doesn't sit well with them or their fans at all. Got a nice win over Texas A&M coming out of the SEC. They beat Grand Canyon, who of course beat Utah. So they've got a handful of decent wins. I think they're doing pretty well in quad 2, not so good in quad 1 for whatever that's worth. And I think that, given how many opportunities there are in the Big 12, they've still got a path to the NCAA tournament. I think they're one of the, I guess what you would say the kind of that bottom tier, bottom 8, bottom half of the league that still has a chance to make a move here. And so you're certainly going to get a motivated squad coming into Salt Lake. They've missed out on some opportunities to get some road wins at TCU. They've had a couple of other games, just not go their way. And so they're a good team and they're well coached. And, if you remember the games last year, they really like to get after you on the defensive end. And so Steve Lutz is going to have that team, ready to go. Hopefully the altitude gets to them in the second half.
Yeah. No, hopefully it does. And you mentioned the struggles in the quad 1 territory. I hope people show up to the Huntsman Center and make it a quad 1 type of atmosphere for the Runnin Utes. They're going to need it. There's been a lot of talk about fans showing up, and it's been fun. We've talked about it the last couple episodes. It's been good to see fans getting engaged with it, and Utah's going to need it because even though Oklahoma State, has tailed off here a little bit getting into Big 12 play, this is a team where, if you're Utah, looking at where Oklahoma State was going back to last season and compared to what they are this season, this is a program that if you're Alex Jensen, you're Wes Wilcox, you get an off season where, you can kind of remake the roster and bring in some guys. Like this is sort of the goal where you can get some quality wins early on. Obviously you want to perform better in conference play, but I think Steve Lutz is a great example of what you can do from, year one struggles to then, finding your footing in year two. And I think that should be a big talking point for Utah as we get into, obviously inch closer to the offseason and all that. But
especially with the roster
turnover. Go ahead.
Especially with the roster turnover that they had.
Yeah.
That was my thing. Like I ranked them, I think I ranked them behind Utah in my Big 12 preview, like 13th or something, because of their roster turnover and because of the guys that they were bringing in. We'll talk about a few of them, but like, you're not talking about guys coming in from high major programs for the most part. And, could Lutz make the pieces fit and all of that stuff? And I think it just goes to show you like how important having that culture in place after year one is. And it really is a little bit of a blueprint for Alex Jensen, Wes Wilcox to really follow. So, look, we would be thrilled right now to be, 14-6 and
Right.
2-5 in the Big 12. So, definitely not throwing any shade their way. That's for sure.
No, absolutely not. And again, I think Oklahoma State is a good example for Utah fans to look to at what can happen, year one to year two. Oklahoma State struggled last year. They had some moments, but ultimately more so than not, just struggled a lot. And with this Utah squad this year, similar. And I think once you get into the offseason where you can kind of remake things a little bit more and bring guys in that you feel will buy into the culture that you've established, I think that can go a long way. So let's dive into the matchups of the game, some of the key matchups. Obviously, with Utah, we know who the guys are, right? The top three, the big three: Terrence Brown, Don McHenry, Keanu Dawes. Who would you qualify as the top three players for Oklahoma State that Utah fans should be aware of?
Yeah, it starts with Anthony Roy in
Yeah.
their backcourt. He's a transfer that came in this past offseason from Green Bay. Didn't really know what to make of him coming in because he was coming off of a knee injury, I think a knee or ankle injury. But he's averaging about 17 points per game. He can get downhill. He can shoot it. He might even be Terrence Brown in a different system, right? Like, I think that's how prolific of a scorer he can be. He's been in double figures in all of their games. And so that backcourt matchup between those two, Terrence Brown and Anthony Roy, is going to be interesting. Don McHenry was coached by Steve Lutz at Western Kentucky. And so there's some familiarity there, which is interesting. And so, and then in the front court, it's Parsa Falah, who's their 6'10" big. He transferred in from Oregon State. Before that, he was at Southern Utah, where he had 20 points. I don't know if you remember that thriller between Utah and Southern Utah a few years ago. It was like 88-86 or something like that.
Yeah.
He had 20 points in that game. And so, he's got some familiarity with the Huntsman Center. He feels good. He feels good in the Huntsman Center, but slowing him down is going to be a big thing because he's got really great skills around the rim. Yeah. Utah doesn't have any rim protection. So how are they going to battle him? It'll be interesting to see. And then if I had to choose a third guy, it'd probably be Victorious Miller, who's their guard that transferred in from LSU. He's kind of their on my show, I called him kind of their Johnny on the spot. They had a game lost against Kansas State, and he got fouled shooting a three with like 2 seconds left, sunk all of the free throws, got them the win. So those would be kind of the three that I would keep an eye on.
Yeah, I'm interested to see this matchup, right? With Terrence Brown and Anthony Roy. He'll see time, against Victorious Miller, Jalen Curry, Kanye Clary as well. This is an interesting matchup when you look at just the roster and kind of the makeup of Oklahoma State's roster. It's not outside of the two bigs in Parsa, and then they've got another big guy off the bench, Vukovic.
Yeah.
It's not like a big, tall team. They've got a lot of guys that are 6'5". They've got a 6'8" kid, but this is going to be an interesting matchup. And so given the fact that, we know where Utah is deficient at right now, it's a big man.
Right.
How does Utah go about, defending Oklahoma State? Is it, are we going to see minutes for our baby face freshman out of Georgia? Are we going to see the big kid get some time?
Ooh. I don't know if I'd go that far. I think Josh Hayes might have to learn charge in this game.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, hey, Josh, put your chest into this guy and just let him run you over a couple of times. I'm fascinated to see how they do it. I have a sense, just based on how we've seen them defend the three this year, that they might try to pack the paint on this on this guy and get the ball out of his hands, which means he's going to be kicking it out to Roy and Clary and Miller and all those guys for probably some wide open threes. And then it's going to be a matter of whether or not Oklahoma State can make those threes and make Utah adjust. So I would kind of make Falah this, the focus of the defense, because I think it's going to start with him. He could easily be one of these guys that comes in and gets 20 and 15 if Utah's not careful.
100%, right? So protecting the paint, that's going to be a big thing. And, obviously with James Okonkwo and his athleticism, his energy, you hope that can hold up against a big body like Parsa and that. So, um, but yeah, it's going to be an intriguing matchup. Utah's got some length with Keanu and perhaps we see EB Traore get some time, just kind of given the need for some big help. But we'll see. With Terrence Brown and Utah's guard play, Don McHenry, and that I think this is a really fascinating matchup. Styles make fights, and Utah's style is offense, getting up and down the floor, and I feel like if they can get into that type of game, am I crazy for thinking like that's what Utah need? They don't want to get this into a slog fest because, Oklahoma State's going to be able to pound the glass, use their size to their advantage. They want to get out. They want to, get out, get on the run, tire these guys down because, again, like you mentioned, elevation, getting those lungs to burn in the second half, that's going to be the key.
Yeah, we're not in Stillwater, guys. So Oklahoma State's, in a cluster of teams right now that's like right behind Arizona in terms of points per game. They score at a pretty high clip. I think they score close to 87 points per game. And so so I think Utah, their formula in this game is probably going to be winning a track meet. And so it's going to be one of those things where they just have to, they got to hit more threes, right? That corner pocket three has got to be working for Dawes and Sanders and Don McHenry, and you know what I mean? And the
Right.
three ball has to not be working as well for Oklahoma State. So I do think that it's going to be one of those games where they may just have to try to outrun them as much as they can.
Yeah, so Oklahoma State 8th in the conference and rebounding at 37.5. Utah 14th at 34.7 rebounds per game. Keep that close. Don't allow Oklahoma State to, get that big margin where they're cleaning up the glass a lot, right? We saw that against BYU, a 40-24 margin last week. Need to keep the difference there to as small as you can possibly get it, and I think that's going to be the key, is cleaning the glass, protecting the paint, and keeping that, finishing those defensive series, right? Finishing those with rebounds, getting out on the run, getting out in transition, and taking advantage of those opportunities. You mentioned that Oklahoma State, I was surprised, looking at some of their 3-point shooting, 36% overall as a team. They've got some guys that can get hot. Utah, though, 37.1%, fifth best in the conference. I think given what we saw from this squad last week against BYU on the road in a hostile environment, with the way that offense has generated some quality looks, as long as this group can again, clean the glass at an efficient rate, they're probably not going to win the rebounding margin, but as long as you can keep it close and you can you stay committed to your offense and generate those, second, third trips, on the floor, getting the ball from side to side where you create that open look. We've seen this team really improve. I've been really impressed with the way that Utah has shot the ball this season overall. I think they've caught a lot of people by surprise even, but to see that fifth best in the conference, I think is really saying something. And I think it speaks to the offense, and Utah's going to need that Saturday.
Yeah. And they don't rely on the three,
right?
The way that they have in the past, right? Where, last year it's like, well, this game hinges on whether or not Gabe Madsen can.
Gabe is hot. Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
It's not quite that. And Alex has really been pushing them to make good decisions, with their 3-point shot. And I think we're seeing that as well. We talked about the pocket three.
Yeah.
That's Kendall Sanders' shot. Keanu Dawes can get going from there. Don McHenry can get going from there. And so as long as they're not, as long as they don't fall in love with it, I think it can be a big time, factor for them. I said this in my game preview on my show, like at home, you got to shoot the three better and you got to shoot free throws better than your opponent. Like that just has to be a thing that you do at home. And so, if they can, just be what Alex wants them to be, moving the ball around, not taking early clock, shots, I think they've got a really good chance in this game. For sure.
No, absolutely. And I think, being back at home, I'm interested to see the turnout on Saturday. With the Muss specifically, I'm really I think everybody is hoping to see the Must turnout because when they're there and they're packing the place and they're loud, they make a real difference. And
Yeah.
we saw it against TCU where the energy from the crowd can really make a difference on the defensive end of the floor, where it just, these guys hit a shot, the crowd gets going, and you see the intensity on the defensive end of the floor. And that's really where, a fan base, a crowd can really benefit this team, is on the defensive end of the floor. So hope to see the fans turn out. Again, there's been a lot of talk, a lot of conversation about it. So again, hope everybody shows up. 4 p.m. tip. So be there 3:30, obviously. Enjoy the pregame warm-ups and all of that. But I think that's going to be an interesting one. So, all right, dude, let's zoom out a little bit. As we talked about, the Big 12 has been in action this week, Monday through Thursday. There's been a number of games. Iowa State just mopped Colorado earlier tonight. 30-point victory.
I just want to see that once for Utah. Just once.
Oh, man. Yeah, serious.
You just go into a game and you're like, oh, man, this is going to be a tough one. And then they just zoom past somebody.
Oh, man. Can't wait for the day.
Yeah.
Cannot wait. So looking at the Big 12 standings, it's really interesting. Obviously, there's a lot of talk that the Big 12 is the best conference in the country, and we have the top of the conference to thank for that. Obviously, with Arizona, Houston, Texas Tech, and Iowa State, BYU in there and Kansas as well. Then, you look at the standings, and the bottom is actually it's not great. It's not good. But for Utah, that's a good thing.
Yeah.
You're currently sitting 14th because Baylor and Kansas State have 7 losses, and you've only got 6. You've got Oklahoma State. I think they're 14th, 13th, 12th, 11th.
Yeah, they're 2-5. So they're just a game ahead, right?
So this is a big one for the Big 12 picture, Big 12 standings. And I've got to get my Big 12 tournament booked here. My trip booked here soon. I've got a deadline of February 10th. It's coming quick, and we're going to be talking about Big 12 tournament seeding. And so this is a game where if you get this, you can be off of that Arizona line. You could be off that, some of those others, and you can move up. This is valuable. And I think for Utah, with the way that they've been improving this season, this is a game where, if you can add this really does kind of help you out.
Yeah. I mean, if they get this win, they go to 2-6 in Big 12 play, which would tie them with Oklahoma State, Arizona State, and Colorado. And they've got Arizona State and Colorado both at home to, round out their schedule. Now they've also got Houston at home, and they've got Kansas on the road. So it's not, but when you're talking about this cluster of bad teams, right, there's certainly some room for them to move up. And honestly, I think that you would get some juice out of that if they could win these next 2. No matter what happened, then I think their next one's at Kansas, that's not going to be a win. But if the home performances are better and the home opponents are beatable, which most of them are, I think I made a mistake a few weeks ago on the Spaces when I said that they had a chance to get a signature win against Iowa State. I don't know that I see that anymore.
Yeah.
But again, the expectations were super low. And so the fact that you have a chance to move ahead of a handful of teams with a couple of wins, that's huge. That's huge for this team.
No, absolutely. And I think that's it's a big opportunity for Utah. And, again, it starts this Saturday. It's going to take everybody showing up. But I do think this team, if you get this win and you can build on it, getting the we're asking a lot right now, given the season and what it's been. I know that. I know we're kind of, talking about this very optimistically.
Well, cart before the horse here, but.
Oh, very much so. Yeah. We acknowledge that. And I should put a little disclaimer at the bottom here, like a little ticker that says, we know what this team,
Don't take our thoughts to the betting window.
Yeah. But no, if you can take advantage of these opportunities in these next 2 games, it really does a lot to kind of change the conversation for Utah from where it was, a month ago, 2 months ago, where we all sort of wrote Utah off as the team dead last in the Big 12. And I think we were talking about it on Monday's episode that we recorded Sunday night, that you want to finish the season with some juice,
Yeah.
with some buzz. And if you can get to 14, 13 maybe in the standings, that does a lot for you. That really does a lot given what this team is, right? With the deficiencies that they have. Alex and this staff can utilize that as they get into the transfer portal recruiting and all of that. That really does kind of help you build and carry some momentum into the offseason. If you can get a couple wins, finish 14th, 13th in the Big 12, that really will do a lot for you.
Yeah, and it's not like, it's not like the teams that they would be facing in, say, the first round of the Big 12 tournament would be unbeatable. Right? Like they're all like teams. I would say the bottom 6 or so are all kind of the same, with the exception of like Baylor. I think Baylor is super talented. I don't understand what's going on there.
Yeah.
With them being 1-7. They have a 5-star recruit.
I agree.
Yeah. Like, what are we doing, Scott Drew? Outside of Baylor, it's an opportunity to end the season on a positive note versus kind of sputtering to end the season, which is really what they've done the last couple of years. It's why we are where we are with a new head coach and kind of a new vibe, right? And so you'd love to see them kind of ascending into February versus here we are halfway through and we're 1-8 in Big 12 play.
Yeah. And going back to some of the conversations with Alex Jensen before the season, early on in the season, he always talked about, we're going to be better at the end of the year than we are to start the year. That's going to be, we're about building to the end of the season, finishing, and I'm paraphrasing what he said, but that is basically the gist of, what he was sharing, was that we want to improve, we want to get better. And I think that's what we're seeing with this team. Whereas, compared to Craig Smith, who got a lot out of his guys, but it felt like it was, by the end of the season, they were just sort of worn down. You kind of used all your tricks early on in the season and that sort of stuff. And it just kind of, by the end of the year, you're just kind of worn down. Whereas this team, it feels like, again, it's been improving. And with this bye week, which they didn't have last year, I'm curious to see what sort of, just kind of getting away from the game, what that could do for this team as they prepare for the next, 10 games and that, where can you continue on this upward trajectory? I think that's going to be the big key.
Yeah. And can you give yourself some momentum? Can you give yourself a little, can you flush the rivalry game, right? Like, you've played them twice in January. That's over. You don't have to worry about those guys for the rest of the season. Probably you don't see them for a year. And so, and obviously you've got some tough games coming up with teams like Houston and Kansas and Iowa State, but like, you can play those teams tough, and that would make, a huge difference. Like, one of the games this week was TCU hosting Houston. They ended up losing that game, but they got it within 2.
It was tight.
With 5 minutes to go in the game, 6 minutes to go, something like that. And it was one of those where, like, the way that people were talking about TCU coming out of that game versus like how they're probably talking about Colorado tonight.
Yeah.
It's way different. Yep. And so even like Cincinnati beating Baylor, like it's just, you get these wins and it just changes the conversation around the team, and it probably changes how they feel, going out. And so that's just what their opportunity is here on the stretch.
Yeah. And again, we've talked about this in previous episodes, but getting a signature win, right? You mentioned the Iowa State thing. But getting a signature win, right? Like right now it's, what is their signature win? Do they have one? They have some good, encouraging performances. You look at that TCU game. Do we qualify that as a signature win? Hopefully, by the end of the season, we've got some others to factor into that conversation. Miss Ole Miss, that's probably, your signature win, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
But you're going to have opportunities to add wins. Can you then steal one that maybe you shouldn't win? I think that could be interesting as well. So the schedule is tough. It is definitely tough. You've still got Kansas, Houston, West Virginia, Iowa State. You've got UCF at home, Baylor on the road. Again, talking about Baylor like they're good. They're not good for whatever reason, because Scott Drew is just he's jumped. He's jumped. He's just out there.
He picked up a technical in their game the other day because he got in front of the ref running down the court. He walked on the court and stopped the ref in their tracks. So
it's tough down there right now.
Yeah, things are, Dave Aranda's looking pretty good all of a sudden. I mean,
oh yeah, dude. that's saying something.
Yeah.
Oh man. But yeah.
And I think they play at Arizona State.
They do. Yep.
Right?
Yep, they do.
And I think an interesting storyline here is I think that game is either in March or end of February.
It's the last day of February, the 28th.
Yeah. Bobby Hurley might not even be the coach by the time.
I swear we have this conversation every season.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, he doesn't have a contract next year. So
yeah. So no, this really could be it. Yeah.
I think this is it. Anyway, so you talk about trying to steal one on the road, trying to get signature wins, there are some opportunities there.
No, 100%. Man, Bobby Hurley, I swear it's the same story every year. He gets a new roster. There's some fun guards. They get some impressive wins early on. Then they just fall off the face of the earth. Turn, once you turn the new year, they just fall off a cliff. And man, yeah.
And then they come to Salt Lake and hang 90 on Utah for whatever reason. Let's hope that doesn't happen.
Yeah, no, we don't want that. No, we were just talking about getting these next two. So, well, cool. Andrew, this has been good. A good preview. Hopefully should be an interesting matchup Saturday, 4 p.m. tip. And hope again to see a lot of folks out at the game at the Huntsman Center. Should be a lot of fun. Any final thoughts before we wrap this one up?
Just some broader thoughts. When we're talking about the big picture of the Big 12, there's some bangers down the stretch here in the Big 12. You've got, BYU's at Kansas this weekend. That's a huge one. Both of those teams are 5-2 right now. I'm trying to think of some of the other matchups, but like Arizona and Arizona State are playing. So again, you're going to get ASU off of a rivalry game. That's going to probably take a little bit of, out of those guys. Houston is
UCF the same night. Utah, Arizona State plays.
Yeah.
West Virginia, Cincinnati next week. That's a game where that can help Utah out in the standings potentially.
Yeah.
Depending on what they do the next two games.
Yeah, I think UCF hosts Texas Tech this weekend.
Yep.
They had Arizona there a few weeks ago and, kind of came up short, but you got to figure they'll have a big crowd for that. Anyway, Big 12 is fun to watch. I guess that would be my plea to those out there that are watching and listening. Don't just watch Utah. Don't just watch BYU if you're hate watching the Blockcast right now. Watch the rest of the league. It's a fun basketball league.
No, it really is. And I think we're seeing the Utah fan base acknowledge that, right? The fact that there is this, the conversation is growing despite what we're seeing from Utah itself. I think it speaks to what the Big 12 is. And if when Utah figures things out with Alex and Wes, that this is going to be pretty fun. This is a really competitive, really competitive basketball conference. And watch these other teams there. It's fun. It's entertaining. Like I said, I was watching Iowa State, Colorado, the first 10 minutes, at least before they went up 20, and then, but it was, it was something else. And you see great performances on a weekly basis, right? With the programs that are in this league. And it's a lot of fun. That's a great note to end on. And I think it's getting people jonesing for Runnin Utes basketball to return to its form as we knew it years ago. And I think doing that in the Big 12 would be significant and huge for this fan base. So yeah.
One last thing. I'm told it's alumni weekend.
Hey.
And so I think there's probably going to be some former Runnin Ute dignitaries at the game. Guys like Josh Grant, guys like, maybe they said on the broadcast at the BYU game that Michael Doliak was at that game in Provo, which I don't know if anybody can confirm that or not.
Try to confirm.
He's like 7 feet tall.
Yeah.
And almost
the biggest
50.
doctor you've ever known.
Yeah.
Surgeon.
Yeah. So
that's a ways down.
Yeah.
To the surgery, to the table.
Yeah. It's true. I don't know if Burgess will be there for alumni weekend or not, but there'll be some guys. There'll be some guys there. So, go dab them up. Go tell them, hey, I want to hear you on the Runnin' Hoops podcast. Whatever.
We got to get some guys on here with us. We got to get Parker Van Dyke. We got to get PVD. We got to get David Collette and all the greats.
Get those guys in the spaces on Sunday nights too.
Yeah. We got to get that going. Keep it going. But Andrew, dude, you're doing a great job. Appreciate the work as always. Thank you for hopping on with me.
Yes, sir.
We'll make sure to get some guys on here with us as well to do some interviews and stuff like that. So appreciate everybody for tuning into this one. For myself, for Andrew, this is the Utah Blockcast signing off.